when a single kiss becomes a death sentence. Elena Hayes thought she'd escaped her nightmare 3 years ago. New city, new name. Her son safely hidden. Then one night at a Manhattan gala, she locked eyes with the monster she'd fled, Derek Voss, her abusive ex, watching her with that same predatory smile. Cornered and desperate, she did the unthinkable, kissed a dangerous stranger to make Derek believe she wasn't alone anymore. That stranger was Luca Moretti, a man more powerful and lethal than she could imagine. One kiss, one viral moment, and suddenly running was no longer an option. Stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story reaches. The chandelier above Elena's head scattered light like broken glass across the ballroom floor. She stood near the champagne fountain, clutching a flute she hadn't sipped from, trying to blend into the cream-colored walls and the laughter of people who belonged here. People who hadn't spent the last 3 years looking over their shoulders. She didn't belong at the Whitmore Foundation gala. Not really, but her boss, Catherine, had insisted. "You've earned this, Elena. Stop hiding in the copy room." Catherine meant well. She always did. But Catherine didn't know about the copy room being the only place Elena felt safe. No windows, lockable door, no one watching. Tonight, though, there were too many people watching. Too many eyes. Too many strangers in tuxedos and evening gowns who could be anyone. Could be him. "Stop it," Elena whispered to herself, pressing her thumb against the stem of the champagne flute until it hurt. "He doesn't know you're here. He doesn't know where you are. You're safe." 3 years. She'd made it 3 years. The band shifted into something slow and jazzy. Couples drifted toward the dance floor. Elena turned toward the exit, ready to make her excuses and leave early, when she saw him. Derek Voss stood near the entrance, 20 feet away, scanning the room like he owned it. Like he owned everyone in it. Her champagne flute slipped from her fingers. It hit the marble floor and shattered, the sound swallowed by the music and conversation. No one noticed. No one except Derek, whose head turned at the crash like a predator hearing prey stumble. Their eyes met. His mouth curved into that smile. The one she used to mistake for charm. The one that came right before his hand closed around her throat. Elena's lungs stopped working. Her vision tunneled. The ballroom collapsed into a single point. Derek, moving toward her through the crowd, his smile widening with every step. No, 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 no. She spun, nearly colliding with a waiter carrying a tray of hors d'oeuvres. "Sorry," she gasped, shoving past him. She needed to leave, needed to get to the exit before Derek reached her, needed to get home to Jamie, needed to pack, needed to disappear again. A hand caught her elbow. She yanked away, twisting, ready to scream. "Easy." The voice was low, controlled. Male, not Derek's voice. Elena blinked. The man in front of her was tall, dark-haired, expensive-looking in a way that went beyond his perfectly tailored tuxedo. Sharp jawline. Gray eyes that seemed to catalog everything about her in half a second. He didn't look concerned. He looked calculating. "I'm sorry," she stammered, trying to step around him. "I need to... He's following you." The man's gaze flicked past her shoulder. "The one in the navy suit. Your ex?" Elena's breath caught. "How did he..." "I can see it on your face." His tone didn't change. Matter of fact. Like they were discussing the weather. And on his, he's what, 10 feet away now? 9? Her hand started shaking. "I have to go. If you run, he'll follow. If he follows, he'll corner you in the parking garage or the street. Is that what you want?" "What I want," Elena hissed, her fear sharpening into something closer to anger, "is for you to let me go." The man's expression didn't shift. "Do you trust me?" "What? No, I don't even know you." "Good. That makes this easier." He stepped closer, one hand settling at the small of her back. His voice dropped lower, meant only for her. "Kiss me. Right now. Make him think you're with someone. Make him think you're not alone." Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. "You're insane." "Probably, but I'm also your best option in the next 3 seconds." She could feel Derek closing in, could almost feel his presence like a shadow creeping across her skin. The panic was rising, drowning her, and this stranger, this insane, presumptuous stranger, was offering her a lifeline she didn't understand. "Why would you help me?" she whispered. The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. "Maybe I don't like men who scare women at charity galas." Elena didn't let herself think. She grabbed the lapels of his tuxedo and pulled him down, pressing her mouth to his. The kiss was meant to be quick, a performance, a desperate gambit to make Derek believe she'd moved on, that she wasn't the same terrified woman he'd once controlled. But the stranger didn't kiss like it was a performance. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her head back, and the kiss deepened into something that made her forget where she was. Forget the ballroom, the crowd, Derek. For 5 heartbeats, there was only the heat of his mouth and the solid weight of his hand at her back, anchoring her when everything else felt like it was spinning apart. When he pulled away, his eyes were darker. "Well," he murmured, his thumb brushing her jaw. That was unexpected. Elena's face burned. She stepped back, her pulse hammering. "Did it work?" The man glanced past her. His expression cooled. He's still watching, but he's not moving, not yet. She risked a look over her shoulder. Derek stood 15 feet away, his smile gone. His eyes were locked on her, and the stranger, his jaw tight with something that might have been rage or disbelief. "Come on!" The stranger's hand found hers, his grip firm. "Let's give him a reason to stay put." "What are you—" He led her onto the dance floor before she could finish the question, pulling her into a waltz like they'd done this 100 times before. Elena stumbled, trying to keep up, her mind racing. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the music. "Luca." He didn't offer a last name, didn't ask for hers. "Relax. If you look terrified, this won't work." "I am terrified." "Then fake it better." She wanted to hate him for that, for his arrogance, his presumption, the way he'd pulled her into this without asking. But his hand was steady at her waist, and for the first time in 3 years, someone was standing between her and Derek. Even if that someone was a stranger who kissed like he was used to getting whatever he wanted. "He's leaving," Luca said after a moment. Elena's head whipped around. Derek was moving toward the exit, his phone pressed to his ear, his face a mask of controlled fury. Relief flooded through her so fast it made her dizzy. "Thank you," she breathed. "I don't know why you did that, but thank you." Luca's gaze returned to her. "Don't thank me yet." Before she could ask what he meant, a flash went off near the edge of the dance floor. Then another. Elena turned and saw a cluster of people with phones raised, cameras pointed directly at them. Her stomach dropped. "What?" "Smile," Luca said quietly. "Or don't. But they're going to post those photos either way." "Who are you?" The question came out sharper than she intended. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Someone you probably shouldn't have kissed." The photos went live before Elena made it home. She didn't know until her phone started buzzing in her purse during the cab ride back to her apartment in Queens. By the time she pulled it out, she had 17 missed calls from Catherine and a string of texts that made her blood run cold. Catherine. "Elena, what the hell?" Catherine. "Are you okay? Is that really you?" Catherine. "Call me, now." Elena's hands shook as she opened Instagram. The first post was from a verified account she didn't recognize, some society blogger with 500,000 followers. The image was grainy but clear enough. Her and Luca, locked in that kiss, his hand tangled in her hair. The caption read, "Luca Moretti makes a very public appearance with a mystery woman at the Whitmore Gala." Who is she? Hashtag Luca Moretti. Hashtag mystery woman. Hashtag Whitmore Gala. The comments were already spiraling into the hundreds. Elena's vision blurred. She scrolled further, finding the same photo reposted across a dozen accounts. Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. The image was everywhere, spreading like wildfire, and with it, her face, her real face. Not the carefully anonymous version she'd cultivated over the last 3 years. Derek would see this, if he hadn't already. The cab pulled up outside her building. Elena shoved cash at the driver and stumbled out, her legs unsteady. She needed to get upstairs, needed to grab Jamie and disappear before Derek figured out where she lived. Her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, was in the hallway when Elena burst through the stairwell door. Elena, I was just about to knock. Your friend dropped off Jamie an hour ago. Such a sweet boy. He fell asleep on the couch. Elena's heart stopped. What friend? Mrs. Chen frowned. The babysitter you sent? Young woman, dark hair. She said you called her because you were running late. I didn't send anyone. Elena's voice cracked. She shoved past Mrs. Chen and threw open her apartment door. Jamie wasn't on the couch. Jamie! Elena's scream tore through the apartment. She checked his bedroom, the bathroom, the kitchen. Empty. All empty. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered it with shaking hands. Hello? Elena. Derek's voice slid through the line like oil. I have to say, I'm impressed. 3 years, and you actually thought you could hide from me. Where's my son? Her voice didn't sound like hers. It sounded feral. Safe, for now. But if you want him to stay that way, you're going to do exactly what I tell you. Derek, please. No more running, Elena. No more hiding, and no more kissing strangers at parties. His laugh was soft, intimate, the same one he used to use right before he hurt her. You belong to me. You always have. And I'm going to remind you of that. The line went dead. Elena collapsed against the wall, her phone clattering to the floor. Jamie. Derek had Jamie. Her phone buzzed again. She grabbed it, desperate, but it wasn't Derek. It was a text from another unknown number. Unknown. We need to talk. Meet me at the address below in 30 minutes. Come alone. An address in Manhattan followed. Some building she didn't recognize. Unknown. I know what happened to your son. If you want him back, you'll come. Luca, not yet. Elena didn't think, didn't weigh her options or consider whether this was a trap. She just ran. The subway ride to Manhattan was a blur of fluorescent lights and strangers' faces. She kept checking her phone, hoping for another text from Derek, some proof that Jamie was okay. Nothing came. The address Luca had sent led to a building in Tribeca, sleek and modern, with a doorman who looked like he could bench press a car. He didn't ask her name, just opened the door and gestured toward the elevator. Penthouse, he said. Mr. Moretti is expecting you. The elevator ride felt like it took hours. When the doors finally opened, Luca was waiting. He'd changed out of his tuxedo into dark slacks and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked different here, less polished, more dangerous. His gray eyes tracked her as she stepped into the penthouse, taking in her pale face and shaking hands. Where's my son? Elena demanded. I don't know yet. Luca's voice was calm, too calm. But I have people looking. Your people? Who the hell are you? Someone who can help you, if you let me. Elena laughed, the sound sharp and broken. Help me? You're the reason Derek knows I'm here. That photo, it's everywhere. He saw it. He took Jamie because of you. Luca's expression didn't change. He took Jamie because he's a coward, who knows he's losing control of you. The photo just accelerated his timeline. You don't know anything about him. Derek Voss, 42, runs a mid-tier investment firm with ties to some very unpleasant people. History of domestic violence that never made it to trial because his last 2 girlfriends dropped the charges after receiving large settlements. You left him 3 years ago and filed for a restraining order that expired 6 months later. You've been off the grid ever since. Luca paused. How am I doing? Elena stared at him. How do you... I make it my business to know things, especially about men like Derek. He moved toward the floor-to-ceiling windows, hands in his pockets. He's predictable, narcissistic. He can't stand the idea of you moving on, so he's going to try to break you, make you come crawling back. I won't. The words came out like a vow. Luca glanced at her. I know. That's why you're still standing. Elena's throat tightened. She didn't want his assessment, didn't want him analyzing her like some kind of case study. She wanted her son. If you know so much, then tell me where Jamie is. Derek won't hurt him. Not yet. Jamie's leverage. The moment he harms the boy, he loses his power over you. That's not good enough. It's the truth. Luca turned to face her fully. Derek wants you scared. He wants you desperate. And he's going to draw this out as long as he can because that's what men like him do. They feed on fear. Then what do I do? Elena's voice broke. Just wait? Let him... No. Luca's tone sharpened. You let me handle Derek. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. I know enough. He stepped closer, his gaze steady. You kissed me tonight because you were desperate, but you didn't fall apart. You didn't freeze. You acted. That tells me you're stronger than Derek thinks you are. Elena shook her head. I'm not strong. I'm terrified. Good. Fear keeps you smart, but terror makes you reckless. Luca's jaw tightened. Derek is going to call you again. When he does, you're going to agree to meet him, and I'm going to be there to make sure he regrets ever laying a hand on you. This is insane. I don't even know what you do, what you are. I'm someone Derek should have avoided. Luca's smile was cold. And by tomorrow, he's going to wish he'd left you alone. Derek called again at 2 a.m. Elena was sitting on Luca's couch, a cup of untouched tea in her hands, when her phone lit up. She grabbed it, her heart lurching. Hello? Did you miss me, baby? Derek's voice was soft, mocking. You sound tired. Not sleeping well? Where is he? Elena's hand clenched around the phone. Let me talk to him. Not yet. First, we need to discuss some things, like that little stunt you pulled at the gala. I don't care about the gala. I care about my son. Our son, Derek corrected. You never filed the birth certificate with my name, but we both know the truth. Jamie is mine. You're mine. And you're going to remember that. Elena's breath came faster. Luca was watching her from across the room, his expression unreadable. What do you want? She asked. I want you to come home, back to where you belong. No more games, Elena. No more running. You meet me tomorrow night, alone, and we'll talk about Jamie's future. Maybe, if you're very, very good, I'll even let you see him. Where? Derek's laugh was low. I'll text you the address. Come alone. If I see anyone with you, if I even think you brought someone, Jamie disappears. Understand? Yes. Good girl. I knew you'd see reason. He paused. Oh, and Elena, lose the new boyfriend. Luca Moretti might have money and connections, but he can't protect you from me. No one can. The line went dead. Elena lowered the phone, her hands trembling. Luca crossed the room and took it from her, checking the call log. He'll send the address within the hour, Luca said. When he does, we move. He said to come alone. You won't be? Luca's voice was flat. Derek doesn't get to set the terms anymore. If he sees you, he won't. Luca met her gaze. Trust me. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to scream that she didn't trust him, didn't trust anyone. But Jamie's face flashed through her mind, his gap-toothed smile, the way he always insisted on wearing his astronaut pajamas even in the summer, and the fight drained out of her. Okay, she whispered. Okay. The address came through an hour later. An abandoned warehouse in Red Hook, Brooklyn. The kind of place people went to disappear. Luca didn't seem surprised. He made 3 phone calls in rapid succession, speaking in low tones Elena couldn't quite hear. When he hung up, his expression was grim. We leave in 20 minutes. There's a team already in position. A team? Elena's stomach twisted. What kind of team? The kind that makes sure Derek doesn't walk away from this. I don't want anyone to get hurt. I just want Jamie back. Luca's gaze softened slightly. Derek hurt you. For years. He took your son. Men like him don't stop unless someone makes them stop. And you're going to be that someone? Yes. The certainty in his voice should have scared her. Instead, it felt like the first solid thing she'd held on to in 3 years. The warehouse loomed against the night sky, its broken windows like empty eyes. Elena sat in the passenger seat of Luca's car, her hands clenched in her lap, watching the building. He's inside, Luca said, checking his phone. 2nd floor. 2 men with him. How do you... Thermal imaging. My team has the building surrounded. When you go in, they'll move into position. Elena's throat tightened. What if something goes wrong? What if he hurts Jamie? He won't get the chance. Luca's hand covered hers, warm and steady. I need you to do exactly what I say. Walk in, keep Derek talking. The moment you have visual confirmation that Jamie is safe, you get him out. My team will handle the rest. And if Derek tries to stop me? Luca's expression went cold. Then he'll learn what happens when he underestimates you. The warehouse smelled like rust and old rain. Elena's footsteps echoed as she crossed the concrete floor, her heart slamming against her ribs. The second floor was accessible by a rusted metal staircase that groaned under her weight. Derek was waiting at the top. He looked the same. Same sharp suit, same easy smile, same eyes that used to make her feel like she was the only person in the world, before she learned that look was just another cage. Elena. He opened his arms like they were old friends. You came. Where's Jamie? Her voice was steadier than she felt. Straight to business. I always loved that about you. Derek gestured to a door behind him. He's in there, safe and sound, but before you see him, we need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. Derek's smile thinned. That's where you're wrong. We have 3 years to talk about. 3 years of you running from me, making me look like a fool. You made yourself look like a fool. His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. The movement was so fast, so familiar, that Elena's body reacted before her mind could catch up. She twisted, using the self-defense move she'd learned in the months after leaving him, and broke his grip. Derek's eyes widened. Then he laughed. Well, someone's been taking classes. Did your new boyfriend teach you that? Let me see my son. Not until you understand something. Derek stepped closer, his voice dropping. You don't get to leave me, Elena. You don't get to kiss other men and build a new life. Everything you have, everything you are, it's because I allowed it. You're wrong. Elena's hands curled into fists. I left you because you're a coward who only feels powerful when he's hurting someone smaller. And I'm done being smaller than you. Derek's face twisted. You think you're strong now? You think one kiss with some rich asshole makes you untouchable? I think you're afraid. Elena's voice was shaking, but she didn't stop. That's why you took Jamie, because you know I'll never come back to you. Not willingly, and it's killing you. Derek's hand moved toward his jacket. Elena saw the gun before he pulled it fully free. Get in the room, he said quietly. Now. Elena didn't move. Behind Derek, she saw a shadow shift in the darkness. Luca. No, she said. Derek's eyes narrowed. What did you say? I said no, I'm not afraid of you anymore. The gunshot was deafening. Elena screamed, but the bullet didn't hit her. Derek stumbled forward, his gun clattering to the floor. Blood bloomed across his shoulder. Behind him, Luca stood with his own weapon raised, his expression colder than Elena had ever seen. You're done, Luca said. Derek snarled, lunging for his gun. Luca fired again, the shot hitting Derek's leg. He went down hard, cursing. Jamie! Elena ran past Derek, shoving through the door. Her son was inside, tied to a chair, tears streaming down his face. Mommy! Elena's hand shook as she untied the ropes, pulling Jamie into her arms. He was okay. He was safe. She pressed her face into his hair, breathing him in, her whole body trembling. Behind her, she heard more gunshots, shouting, the crash of bodies hitting the floor. When she finally carried Jamie out of the room, Derek was on the ground, surrounded by men in tactical gear. Luca stood over him, his gun still raised, blood seeping from a wound in his side. Luca! Elena started forward, but he waved her off. Get Jamie out of here, he said, his voice tight with pain. This isn't over. The police came an hour later. Ambulances, crime scene tape. Elena sat in the back of an ambulance with Jamie wrapped in a blanket, watching as they loaded Derek onto a stretcher. He was alive. Barely. Luca was being treated for his gunshot wound a few feet away, refusing to go to the hospital until he'd spoken with the detectives. His eyes found Elena's across the chaos, and something passed between them. An understanding. A promise. Ma'am? A detective approached, her expression kind but firm. I need to ask you some questions. Elena nodded, pulling Jamie closer. I'll tell you everything. But as she started to speak, she realized she didn't know what everything meant anymore. Didn't know how to explain Luca, or the kiss, or the way her life had exploded in the span of a single night. All she knew was that Derek was finally in custody. Jamie was safe. And for the first time in 3 years, she wasn't running. The headlines hit the next morning. Investment exec Derek Voss arrested in kidnapping, assault case. Luca Moretti involved in dramatic warehouse confrontation. Mystery woman from viral kiss identified as kidnapping victim's mother. Elena didn't read past the first few lines. She was too exhausted, too hollowed out. Jamie was asleep in the hotel room Luca had arranged for them, somewhere safe, somewhere Derek's people couldn't find them. Catherine had called 6 times, offering help, offering a place to stay. Elena hadn't answered yet. Her phone buzzed. A text from Luca. Luca, how are you holding up? Elena stared at the message, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Elena, I don't know. Jamie's safe. That's all that matters. Luca, Derek's lawyer is already trying to spin this, calling it a misunderstanding, self-defense. Elena, of course he is. Luca, he won't win. I'll make sure of it. Elena, why are you doing this? You don't owe me anything. The typing indicator blinked for a long time. Luca, maybe I just don't like men who hurt women. Or maybe I'm selfish and I want to see what happens when you stop running. Elena's throat tightened. She didn't know how to respond to that. Luca, get some rest. We'll talk tomorrow. She set her phone down and looked at Jamie, curled up on the bed, his astronaut pajamas slightly too small now. He'd grown in the hours he'd been gone, or maybe she had. Either way, when she closed her eyes, she didn't see Derek's face. She saw Luca's, and the gunshot, and the way he'd stepped between her and the bullets without hesitation. For better or worse, her life had changed, and there was no going back. Elena woke to the sound of Jamie's laughter. For a moment, she forgot where they were, forgot the hotel room with its generic beige walls and the faint smell of industrial cleaning products. Then reality crashed back in, heavy and unavoidable. She sat up, her body aching from a night spent half asleep, always listening for footsteps in the hallway or the click of a lock being picked. Jamie was sitting cross-legged on the floor, watching cartoons on the hotel TV with the volume turned low. He looked up when he heard her move. "Morning, Mommy." His voice was small, careful, the way it used to be when Derek was around. Elena's chest tightened. "Morning, baby. You hungry?" Jamie nodded, but his eyes didn't quite meet hers. She knew that look, the one that meant he had questions he was too afraid to ask. She crossed to him and sat down on the carpet, pulling him into her lap, even though he was getting too big for it. He didn't resist, just curled against her, his small hands gripping her shirt. "Am I in trouble?" he whispered. "What? No, Jamie, no. Why would you think that?" "Because of the man, the one who took me." Jamie's voice cracked. He said you were bad, that you took me away from my dad and that's why he had to fix it." Elena's vision blurred. She pressed her face into Jamie's hair, breathing through the rage that threatened to choke her. Derek had gotten into her son's head, planted those words like poison. "Listen to me," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "That man lied to you. Everything he said was a lie. I took you away because staying would have hurt both of us. I left to keep you safe. Do you understand?" Jamie was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded against her chest. "Is he coming back?" he asked. "No, he's not." "Promise?" Elena closed her eyes. She wanted to promise, wanted to tell Jamie that Derek was gone forever, that they'd never have to think about him again. But she'd learned the hard way that promises could break, that men like Derek didn't stay down unless someone made sure of it. "I'm going to do everything I can to make sure he never comes near us again," she said instead. "And I'm not alone this time. We have help." Jamie pulled back, looking up at her with those wide, serious eyes. "The man from last night? The one with the gun? His name is Luca, and yes, he's helping us. Is he your boyfriend now?" Elena nearly laughed. The question was so absurd, so innocent, that it cut through the tension like a knife. "No, baby, he's just a friend." Jamie seemed to consider this. Then he shrugged and turned back to the TV. Subject closed, at least for now. Elena's phone buzzed on the nightstand. She grabbed it, her pulse jumping, but it wasn't Derek. It was Luca. The text was short. "Breakfast. Downstairs. 20 minutes. She typed back quickly. "Jamie's with me." "I know. Bring him." Elena stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. She didn't know what Luca wanted. Didn't know if dragging Jamie into another conversation about Derek was a good idea. But the alternative, staying locked in this hotel room, waiting for the next disaster, felt worse. "Get dressed," she told Jamie. "We're going to meet someone." The hotel restaurant was nearly empty at 8 in the morning. Luca sat at a corner table, his back to the wall, a cup of black coffee in front of him. He looked better than he had the night before. No blood, no visible wounds, but there was a tightness around his eyes that suggested the gunshot was still bothering him. He stood when he saw them approach. Jamie shrank behind Elena's leg, peeking out at Luca with a mixture of curiosity and fear. "Jamie," Luca said, crouching down to the boy's eye level. "I'm Luca. Your mom probably told you about me." Jamie nodded, not speaking. "I'm sorry about what happened last night. That must have been really scary." Another nod. Luca glanced at Elena, then back at Jamie. "Do you like pancakes?" Jamie's eyes widened slightly. "Yeah." "Good. Let's get you some." Luca flagged down a waitress and ordered a stack of pancakes with extra syrup, then gestured for Elena to sit. She did, watching him carefully. This version of Luca, gentle, patient, didn't match the man who'd put 2 bullets in Derek without hesitation. "How are you feeling?" she asked once Jamie was distracted by the coloring sheet the waitress had brought over. "I've been shot before. This one wasn't so bad." Luca's tone was casual, like they were discussing the weather. Elena's stomach twisted. "You've been shot before?" "Occupational hazard." What exactly is your occupation?" Luca's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "I solve problems. The kind most people can't solve on their own." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I'm giving you right now." Elena's hands clenched around her coffee cup. "You killed 2 men last night. They would have killed you, and Jamie." Luca's gaze didn't waver. "I don't regret it." "I didn't ask if you regretted it. I asked what you do." Luca leaned back in his chair, studying her. "I run a private security firm. Bodyguards, risk assessment, threat mitigation. Most of my clients are people who can't go to the police when things get dangerous. People like you." "I didn't hire you." "No, but you kissed me. And that changed things." Elena's face heated. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." "I know, but it did." Luca's expression softened slightly. "Derek's arraignment is this afternoon. His lawyer is going to argue for bail, claim he was acting in self-defense. He'll say he was trying to protect his son from an unstable ex." "That's insane. He kidnapped Jamie." "Insane or not, it's the play they're making. Derek has money and connections. If the judge grants bail, he walks." Elena's chest tightened. "And if he walks? Then he comes after you again, smarter this time. He won't make the same mistakes." "So what do I do?" Luca's eyes locked onto hers. "You let me handle it." "Handle it how?" "By making sure Derek doesn't get bail. By making sure every dirty secret he's buried comes to light. By destroying him so thoroughly that he never has the power to hurt you again." Elena swallowed hard. "And if I say no? If I tell you to stay out of it? Then you're on your own. And Derek wins." Luca paused. "Is that what you want?" Elena looked at Jamie, carefully coloring a cartoon dinosaur with green crayon. Her son. The only good thing that had come from those years with Derek. The only thing that mattered. "No," she said quietly. "That's not what I want." "Good." Luca pulled a business card from his pocket and slid it across the table. "This is my lawyer. She's going to represent you in the custody case. She's also going to make sure Derek's lawyer knows exactly what kind of man he's defending." Elena picked up the card. The name embossed on it was Vanessa Cho, followed by a string of credentials that made her head spin. "I can't afford—" "You're not paying. I am." "Why?" Luca's jaw tightened. "Because men like Derek think they're untouchable, and I'm tired of watching them get away with it." The pancakes arrived before Elena could respond. Jamie dug in immediately, syrup dripping down his chin. Luca watched him for a moment, something unreadable crossing his face. "He looks like you," Luca said. Elena blinked. "What?" "Jamie? He has your eyes, your stubbornness. You don't know me well enough to know if I'm stubborn." You kissed a stranger to escape your ex. You broke Derek's grip when he grabbed you. You walked into that warehouse knowing it could be a trap. Luca's gaze held hers. Yeah, I know you're stubborn. Elena didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to reconcile the man sitting across from her, calm, controlled, dangerous, with the fact that he'd bled for her less than 12 hours ago. I need to ask you something, she said finally. Go ahead. When this is over, when Derek's in prison and Jamie's safe, what happens then? Luca was quiet for a moment. That depends on you. On me? Whether you want to disappear again, go back to hiding, or whether you want to stop running. Elena's throat tightened. I've been running for 3 years. I don't know how to stop. You learn. Luca's voice was softer now. And you don't do it alone. Before Elena could respond, her phone rang. The caller ID read unknown number. Her blood turned to ice. It's him, she whispered. Luca's expression went cold. Answer it. Put it on speaker. Elena's hand shook as she swiped to accept the call. Hello? Elena. Derek's voice was rough, strained with pain. We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. Then just listen. Last night was a mistake. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was hurt, angry. You kidnapped our son. My son. And I was protecting him. From you. From the life you've been forcing him into. Derek's voice hardened. You think you can just take him away from me? Erase me from his life? I have rights, Elena. Parental rights. And my lawyer is going to make sure your lawyer can go to hell, Elena snapped. The words came out before she could stop them. You don't get to talk about rights. Not after what you did. Derek laughed, low and bitter. Still got that fire, I see. I always loved that about you. Even when you were crying on the floor, you still had that spark. Elena's vision blurred. Luca reached across the table and took her hand, his grip firm, grounding. Threatening your ex on a recorded line, Luca said, his voice cutting through Derek's laughter. That's bold. Stupid, but bold. There was a pause. Then Derek's voice turned sharp. Moretti, I was wondering when you'd show up. I'm here now, and I'm going to give you some advice. Drop the custody case. Plead guilty to the kidnapping charges. Take whatever deal the prosecutor offers. Or what? Or I make sure every investor in your firm knows exactly what kind of man they're backing. Every client, every business partner. I'll bury you so deep you'll forget what daylight looks like. Derek's laugh was uglier this time. You think you scare me? I've dealt with men like you before. Men who think their money makes them untouchable. I don't think my money makes me untouchable. I know it does. And I know yours doesn't. Luca's tone didn't change. You have until the arraignment to make your decision. After that, the offer's off the table. The line went dead. Elena stared at the phone, her heart hammering. He's not going to take the deal. I know. Then what was the point? To give him a choice, and to make sure he knows what's coming if he doesn't take it. Luca released her hand and picked up his coffee. Derek's scared. He's just too proud to admit it. He didn't sound scared. Men like him never do. But trust me, he is. Elena wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that Derek was finally feeling a fraction of the fear he'd inflicted on her for years. But fear and pride were a dangerous combination, and Derek had never been good at losing. Jamie tugged on Elena's sleeve, syrup smeared across his face. Can we go to the park? Elena's chest ached. The park. Such a simple request. The kind of thing normal families did on normal mornings. Not today, baby, she said gently. Maybe tomorrow. Jamie's face fell. You always say tomorrow. I know. I'm sorry. Luca stood, pulling out his wallet. Actually, there's a park 2 blocks from here, private, gated. No one gets in without clearance. Elena looked up at him, startled. You're joking. I don't joke about security. Luca dropped cash on the table. Come on, let's get the kids some fresh air. The park was exactly as Luca described. Small, immaculate, surrounded by high wrought iron fencing. A security guard stood at the entrance, nodding at Luca as they passed. Jamie ran ahead to the swings, his earlier fear momentarily forgotten. Elena stood at the edge of the playground, watching him. Luca stood beside her, hands in his pockets. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For this. For letting him be a kid, even if it's just for an hour. Luca didn't respond right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was rougher than usual. I had a sister once, younger than me. She got involved with a guy who... He stopped, his jaw working. She didn't make it out. Elena turned to look at him, her breath catching. Luca, I know what men like Derek do, how they break people down until there's nothing left. His eyes were distant, fixed on something Elena couldn't see. I couldn't save her, but I can help you, so let me. Elena's throat tightened. She didn't know what to say, didn't know how to respond to the raw pain in his voice, so she just reached out and took his hand. They stood like that for a long time, watching Jamie swing higher and higher, his laughter ringing out across the empty park. The arraignment was held in a courthouse that smelled like old wood and stale coffee. Elena sat in the back row of the gallery, Vanessa Cho beside her. Luca had wanted to come, but Vanessa had advised against it. Derek's lawyer will use Luca's presence as evidence that you're being manipulated, Vanessa had explained. Let's not give them ammunition. So Elena sat alone. Well, not alone, but without Luca, and watched as Derek was led into the courtroom in handcuffs. He looked smaller than she remembered, older. The bandages on his shoulder and leg were visible beneath his suit. When his eyes found hers, he smiled. Elena's hands clenched in her lap. Vanessa leaned over and whispered, "Don't react. That's what he wants." The judge, a stern-looking woman in her 60s, called the court to order. Derek's lawyer, a sleek man in an expensive suit, stood and began his argument for bail. He painted Derek as a concerned father, driven to desperate measures by an ex-partner who'd alienated him from his son. Elena's nails dug into her palms. Vanessa placed a hand on her arm, steadying her. When it was the prosecutor's turn, he laid out the charges: kidnapping, assault, unlawful imprisonment. He presented evidence, text messages from Derek, threatening Elena. Hospital records from her time with him, documenting injuries she'd tried to forget. Derek's smile faltered. The judge listened in silence. When both sides had finished, she removed her glasses and looked directly at Derek. Mr. Voss, the evidence presented here suggests a pattern of behavior that poses a significant risk to both the alleged victim and the child involved. Bail is denied. You will remain in custody, pending trial. The gavel came down. Elena's breath left her in a rush. Derek's lawyer immediately began arguing, but the judge ignored him, already moving on to the next case. Derek was led out of the courtroom, his face twisted with rage. As he passed Elena's row, he leaned toward her, his voice low and venomous. This isn't over. The bailiff yanked him forward before Elena could respond. She sat frozen, her heart pounding, until Vanessa touched her shoulder. He's wrong, Vanessa said firmly. It is over. You won. But as Elena walked out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sun, Derek's words echoed in her head. She'd won the arraignment, but the trial was still months away, and Derek had always been good at the long game. Luca was waiting outside, leaning against a black SUV. He straightened when he saw her, his eyes scanning her face. Bail denied, Elena said before he could ask. Something in Luca's expression relaxed. Good. He said it's not over. It's not, but it will be. Luca opened the passenger door. Come on, let's get you out of here. Elena climbed into the SUV, exhaustion washing over her. Luca slid into the driver's seat and pulled into traffic, his movement smooth and controlled. Where's Jamie? Elena asked. Safe. My team has him at the penthouse. There's a security detail on every floor. Is that really necessary? Luca's hands tightened on the wheel. Derek has friends, people who owe him favors. Until the trial's over, you're both targets. Elena's stomach twisted. I can't live like this, looking over my shoulder every second. You won't have to, not forever. But Luca glanced at her. But right now you need to trust me. I do. The words came out before Elena realized she meant them. Luca's expression softened. Then, let me do my job. The penthouse was quiet when they arrived. Jamie was in the living room building a tower out of blocks with one of Luca's security guards, a woman named Sophia who looked like she could bench press a truck, but spoke to Jamie with surprising gentleness. Jamie looked up when Elena walked in, relief flooding his face. "Mommy!" Elena scooped him up, holding him tight. "Hey, baby, did you have fun?" "Sophia taught me how to build a castle. Look!" He wriggled out of her arms and ran back to his blocks, chattering about towers and moats. Sophia stood, nodding at Luca. "No incidents. Everything's been quiet." "Good. Keep it that way." Sophia left without another word. Elena watched her go, then turned to Luca. "How many people work for you?" "Enough." "That's not an answer." "It's the one you're getting." Luca moved to the window, looking out over the city. "Derek's lawyer is going to file an appeal. Try to get the bail decision overturned." "Will it work?" "Not if I have anything to say about it." Elena crossed to him, stopping a few feet away. "You keep saying you'll handle things, but I need to know what that means. What exactly are you planning to do?" Luca was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. "Derek's firm is built on a foundation of lies. Offshore accounts, falsified records, investors who don't ask too many questions. I'm going to tear it apart, piece by piece, until there's nothing left." "And if that's not enough?" Luca turned to face her, his gray eyes cold. "Then I'll make sure he understands what happens when someone threatens what's mine." Elena's breath caught. "I'm not yours." "No," Luca agreed, "but you're under my protection, and I don't take that lightly." The intensity in his gaze made Elena's pulse quicken. She wanted to step back, to put distance between them, but her feet wouldn't move. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked. "It's not just about your sister, is it?" Luca's jaw tightened. "Maybe I'm tired of watching people like Derek win. Or maybe I just like the way you look when you're not scared." "I'm still scared." "I know, but you're standing here anyway. That's the difference." Before Elena could respond, her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, expecting another unknown number, but it was Catherine. The text was short. "Call me. Now. It's important." Elena's stomach dropped. "I need to make a call." Luca nodded, stepping back to give her privacy. Elena moved to the other side of the room and dialed Catherine's number. Catherine answered on the first ring. "Elena, thank God. Have you seen the news?" "What news?" "Someone leaked photos from the warehouse. The shootout. You, Luca, Derek, everything. It's all over social media." Elena's vision swam. "What?" "TMZ picked it up an hour ago. They're calling it the Moretti Rescue. People are going crazy trying to figure out who you are." Elena's hands shook. "This can't be happening." "I'm so sorry. I don't know how they got the photos, but Elena, people are digging into your life. Your old address in Boston just got posted on Twitter." The phone slipped from Elena's fingers. Luca caught it before it hit the floor, bringing it to his ear. "Catherine, it's Luca Moretti. I need you to send me every link you have. Now." He listened for a moment, his expression darkening. "Understood. Don't talk to anyone. No interviews, no comments. I'll handle it." He hung up and handed the phone back to Elena. Her face had gone pale. "They found me," she whispered. "Everyone's going to know." "Let them know." Luca's voice was hard. "You're not hiding anymore." "You don't understand. If Derek's people see this, Derek's people already know where you are. That's why you're here. That's why you're protected." Luca stepped closer, his hands settling on her shoulders. "Listen to me. The media is going to make this into a circus. They're going to dig up every detail of your life, twist it, sensationalize it. But they can't hurt you. Not unless you let them. I'm not strong enough for this." "Yes, you are." His grip tightened. "You've survived worse, and you're still here, still fighting." Elena wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that she could face the cameras and the questions and the endless scrutiny. But all she could think about was Jamie, seeing his mother's face plastered across tabloid covers, hearing the whispers at school, growing up in the shadow of her mistakes. "I need to get him out of here," she said. "Take him somewhere safe, somewhere no one can find us. Running won't solve this. It's all I know how to do." The words came out louder than she intended. Jamie looked up from his blocks, his eyes wide. Elena forced a smile. "It's okay, baby. Mommy's just tired." But Jamie didn't look convinced. He set down his blocks and walked over, wrapping his arms around her legs. "I don't want to move again," he said quietly. I like it here. Elena's heart broke. She knelt down, pulling him close. I know, baby. I know. Luca watched them, something shifting in his expression. When he spoke, his voice was gentler. Give me 48 hours. Let me contain this before you make any decisions. Elena looked up at him, tears burning her eyes. And if you can't? Then I'll help you disappear, somewhere even I can't find you. Luca's gaze held hers. But I don't think that's what you really want. Elena didn't answer, because he was right. She was tired of running, tired of starting over, tired of living in fear. But wanting something and being brave enough to take it were two very different things. The 48 hours Luca promised turned into a week, then 2. The media frenzy didn't die down. It metastasized. Every morning brought new headlines, new speculation, new photos dug up from Elena's past. Someone found her college yearbook picture. Someone else posted screenshots of her social media from 5 years ago, before she deleted everything and gone dark. The narrative shifted daily. One day she was a victim, brave and resilient. The next she was a gold digger who'd seduced a billionaire for protection. The day after that, she was a negligent mother who'd put her son in danger by getting involved with dangerous men. Elena stopped reading after the first week, but she couldn't escape it entirely. Not when Sophia handed her a phone with another security update. Not when Vanessa called with news about the trial. Not when Jamie asked why people were taking pictures of their building from across the street. She was sitting in Luca's living room on a Tuesday afternoon, staring at nothing, when he walked in with a folder under his arm. I have something for you, he said. Elena didn't look up. If it's more legal documents, I can't handle it right now. It's not legal documents. Luca sat down across from her, setting the folder on the coffee table. It's Derek's financial records, every offshore account, every shady transaction, every lie he's told his investors for the past decade. That got her attention. Elena's eyes snapped to the folder. How did you get this? Does it matter? Yes. Luca's mouth twitched. Let's just say Derek's accountant was more interested in immunity than loyalty. Elena reached for the folder, her hands trembling slightly. Inside were pages and pages of bank statements, wire transfers, emails, proof that Derek's entire empire was built on fraud and embezzlement. This is enough to destroy him, she whispered. That's the idea. But the trial, if this comes out before the trial, won't it compromise the case? Vanessa's already coordinating with the prosecutor. They're building a separate case. Financial crimes, tax evasion, money laundering. By the time we're done, Derek won't just lose custody. He'll lose everything. Elena's throat tightened. She should have felt relief, triumph even. But all she felt was exhausted. When does it end? Luca's expression softened. Soon. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Derek's lawyer filed another appeal this morning. It was denied within an hour. His investors are jumping ship. 2 of his biggest clients pulled their accounts yesterday. Luca leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. He's running out of moves. And when he does? When there's nothing left for him to lose? Elena's voice cracked. That's when he's most dangerous. Luca didn't argue. They both knew she was right. Jamie wandered in from the guest bedroom, his hair sticking up at odd angles. He'd adapted to life in the penthouse faster than Elena had expected. Maybe kids were just more resilient, or maybe he was good at hiding his fear, the way she'd taught him to. Can we go outside today? Jamie asked, climbing onto the couch next to Elena. Not today, baby. You said that yesterday, and the day before. Elena's chest ached. I know. I'm sorry. It's not fair. I didn't do anything wrong. You're right. It's not fair. Elena pulled him close, pressing a kiss to the top of his head. But I need you to be patient a little longer. Can you do that for me? Jamie's shoulders slumped, but he nodded. Luca watched the exchange, something unreadable crossing his face. Actually, Luca said, I might have a solution. Elena looked up, wary. What kind of solution? There's a place upstate. A state I use sometimes when I need to disappear for a while. It's private, secure. No paparazzi, no cameras. Jamie could go outside, run around, be a kid. Luca's gaze held hers. You both could. For how long? As long as you need. A week, a month. however long it takes for things to settle down. Elena's first instinct was to refuse. Leaving the city felt too much like running, and she'd promised herself she was done running. But then she looked at Jamie, at the way his eyes had lit up at the mention of going outside, and her resolve crumbled. "Okay," she said quietly. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow morning, early, before the photographers wake up." That night, Elena packed their bags in silence. It didn't take long. They hadn't brought much to begin with. A few changes of clothes, Jamie's favorite stuffed astronaut, the book she'd been trying and failing to read for the past 2 weeks. Luca appeared in the doorway as she was zipping up Jamie's backpack. "You don't have to do this if you don't want to." "I know, but you're doing it anyway." Elena sat back on her heels, looking up at him. "Jamie needs this. He needs to feel normal again, even if it's just for a little while." "And what do you need?" The question caught her off guard. Elena opened her mouth, then closed it again. She didn't know how to answer, didn't know if she even knew what she needed anymore. "I need Derek to go away," she said finally. "I need to stop being afraid every time the phone rings or someone knocks on the door. I need—" Her voice broke. "I need to feel like myself again, whoever that is." Luca crossed the room and crouched down in front of her, his hands resting on her knees. "You'll figure it out, and I'll be there when you do." Elena's breath caught. There was something in his eyes, something raw and honest that made her want to both lean closer and pull away. "Why do you care so much?" "I told you, my sister. This isn't about your sister." Elena's voice was soft but firm. "Not anymore. So why?" Luca was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. "Because when I look at you, I see someone worth saving, and I haven't felt that way about anyone in a long time." Elena didn't know what to say to that, didn't know how to process the weight of his words or the way her heart was racing, so she did the only thing she could think of. She kissed him. It was different from the kiss at the gala, less desperate, more deliberate. Luca's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone, and for a moment the rest of the world fell away. When they finally pulled apart, Luca's forehead rested against hers. "We should probably talk about this." "Probably," Elena agreed. "But not tonight." "Not tonight," Luca echoed. They left before dawn. Luca drove, his hand steady on the wheel as they navigated through empty streets. Jamie slept in the back seat, his head pillowed on his astronaut. Elena watched the city shrink behind them, trying to ignore the knot of anxiety in her stomach. "How far is it?" she asked. 2 hours, maybe less if the traffic stays light." "And you're sure it's safe?" "As sure as I can be. The property's registered under a shell company, no public records linking it to me. The only people who know about it are the ones I trust." Elena wanted to ask how many people that was, but she didn't. Trust was a commodity she'd been running low on for years. The fact that she was trusting Luca at all felt like a small miracle. The estate was nothing like Elena had imagined. She'd pictured something cold and modern, all glass and steel. Instead, it was an old farmhouse surrounded by acres of rolling hills and dense forest, the kind of place that looked like it belonged in a storybook. "This is yours?" she asked as Luca pulled up to the front door. "Technically, it belongs to a corporation that belongs to another corporation that I may or may not own." Luca killed the engine. "But yeah, it's mine." Jamie woke up as they were unloading the car, rubbing his eyes and staring at the house with open wonder. "Is this where we're staying?" "For a little while," Elena said. "Can I explore?" "After breakfast, and only if you stay close." Jamie groaned, but didn't argue. He was getting better at that, accepting the boundaries Elena set without pushing too hard. It made her chest ache, the way he'd learned to be careful. 6-year-olds shouldn't have to be careful. Inside, the house was warm and lived in, with mismatched furniture and walls lined with bookshelves. It didn't look like the kind of place a man like Luca would own. It looked like a home. "How often do you come here?" Elena asked, setting her bag down in the entryway. "Not as often as I should." Luca moved through the house, checking windows and doors with the efficiency of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. "I bought it a few years ago. Thought I'd use it as a retreat. Turns out I'm not very good at retreating." Elena almost smiled. "No, you're really not." They settled into a routine over the next few days. Luca worked from the house, taking calls in the study, while Elena and Jamie explored the property. There was a pond out back where Jamie spent hours trying to catch frogs, a tire swing hanging from an old oak tree, a garden that had gone wild but still produced tomatoes and herbs. It was the closest thing to peace Elena had felt in years. But peace, she was learning, was fragile. On the fourth day, Vanessa called. Elena was in the kitchen making sandwiches for lunch when her phone rang. "Elena, we have a problem," Vanessa said, without preamble. Elena's stomach dropped. "What kind of problem?" "Derek's posting bail." "What?" The judge denied. The appeal went to a different judge, one with ties to Derek's lawyer. They granted bail an hour ago. He's being released this afternoon. Elena's hands went numb. The knife she'd been holding clattered to the counter. No, that's not. How is that possible?" "Money and connections, same way it always works." Vanessa's voice was tight with frustration. "I'm filing an emergency injunction, but it's going to take time. In the meantime, you need to stay where you are. Don't go back to the city. Don't go anywhere Derek might look for you. He already knows where I am. The photos show you at Luca's penthouse, not the estate. As long as you stay put, you're safe." Elena's breath came faster. She could feel the panic rising, threatening to swallow her whole. "What about Jamie? What if Derek tries to—" "He won't. He's not that stupid. He knows we're watching him." Vanessa paused. "Elena, I need you to breathe. Can you do that for me?" Elena forced air into her lungs. Once, twice. It didn't help. "I'm going to call you back in an hour with an update," Vanessa said. "In the meantime, tell Luca. He'll know what to do." The line went dead. Elena stood in the kitchen, staring at her phone, her entire body shaking. Luca found her there 10 minutes later. He took one look at her face and crossed the room, his hands settling on her shoulders. "What happened?" "Derek's out." The words felt like broken glass in her throat. "He made bail." Luca's expression went cold. "When?" "This afternoon." "Does Vanessa think he'll come here?" "She says no, but she doesn't know him like I do." Elena's voice cracked. "He'll find a way. He always does." "Not this time." Luca's grip tightened. "I'm calling in reinforcements. Extra security on the property. Eyes on Derek 24/7. If he so much as looks in this direction, we'll know. And if that's not enough, then I'll handle it." There was something dark in Luca's voice, something that made Elena's skin prickle. "I told you before. Derek's not going to hurt you again. I meant it." Elena wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that walls and security guards and Luca's cold determination were enough to keep Derek at bay. But she'd spent too long underestimating Derek to trust in easy solutions. "I need to tell Jamie," she said quietly. "Tell him what? That we might have to leave, that things might get bad again." Luca's jaw tightened. "Or we could not tell him. Let him have a few more days of being a kid before we drag him back into this." Elena looked up at him, surprised. "You think we should lie to him?" "I think he's 6 years old and he's been through enough. A few days of normalcy won't hurt him. And if Derek shows up, if something happens and Jamie's not prepared, then we'll deal with it together." Luca's hand moved to cup her face. "But I'm not going to let it come to that." Elena closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist that honesty was always better than false comfort. But she was so tired of being strong, so tired of carrying the weight of every decision on her own. "Okay," she whispered. "A few more days." Those few days felt like borrowed time. Elena watched Jamie play by the pond, watched him laugh and run and forget, for brief moments, that his life had ever been anything but this. And she tried to do the same, tried to pretend that the knot in her stomach wasn't growing tighter with every hour that passed. Luca's reinforcements arrived that night, 4 men and 1 woman, all of them moving with the same quiet efficiency as Sophia. They set up a perimeter around the property, installed additional cameras, ran drills that Elena wasn't supposed to notice. "They're good," Luca said when Elena asked about them. "The best I have." "Have you ever lost someone you were protecting?" The question hung in the air between them. Luca's expression shuddered. "Once. Your sister." "Yeah." Elena's chest tightened. "I'm sorry." Don't be. It was a long time ago. But the way he said it, flat, emotionless, told Elena it wasn't long enough. That night, after Jamie was asleep, Elena found Luca in the study. He was sitting at the desk, staring at a laptop screen filled with what looked like financial reports. "Can't sleep?" she asked from the doorway. Luca glanced up. "Could say the same to you. I keep waiting for something to go wrong." Elena moved into the room, wrapping her arms around herself. "It's stupid. Nothing's happened, but I can't shake the feeling that it's coming." "It's not stupid. It's survival instinct." Luca closed the laptop. "You've spent 3 years waiting for the other shoe to drop. That doesn't just go away because you want it to. When does it get easier?" "I don't know. I'll let you know when I find out." Elena almost smiled. "You're not very good at reassurance. You know that? I'm better at honesty." "Yeah, I've noticed." Elena crossed to the desk, leaning against it. "Can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "When this is over, when Derek's in prison and the media moves on to the next story, what happens to us?" Luca's eyes searched hers. "What do you want to happen?" "I don't know. I barely know you, but I—" Elena stopped, struggling to find the words. "I feel safe with you, and I haven't felt safe in a long time. I don't want to lose that." "You won't." Luca stood, closing the distance between them. "Whatever happens, whatever you decide you need, I'm not going anywhere." Elena's breath hitched. "You can't promise that." "I just did." Before Elena could respond, before she could overthink or second-guess or talk herself out of it, she kissed him. Luca's hands found her waist, pulling her closer, and the kiss deepened into something that felt less like comfort and more like inevitability. When they finally broke apart, Elena's forehead rested against his. "This is a terrible idea." "Probably," Luca agreed. "I don't make good decisions when it comes to men." "I'm not Derek." "I know. That's what scares me." Elena pulled back slightly, meeting his gaze. "What if I screw this up? What if I'm too broken to—" "You're not broken." Luca's voice was firm. "Damaged, maybe, but not broken. There's a difference." Elena's throat tightened. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that she was still capable of something good, something real, with someone who saw her as more than a victim or a project or a problem to solve. "Stay with me tonight," she said quietly. "Just stay." Luca's answer was to take her hand and lead her out of the study, down the hall to the bedroom she'd been using. They didn't talk about what it meant or where it was going. They just lay down together, Elena's head on Luca's chest, his arm wrapped around her, and for the first time in years, she fell asleep without checking the locks. The call came at 3 a.m. Elena jolted awake to the sound of Luca's phone buzzing. He answered it immediately, his voice low and alert. "What is it?" Elena couldn't hear the response, but she saw Luca's expression harden. "How long?" A pause. "No, keep eyes on him. Don't engage unless he moves." Another pause. "I'm on my way." He hung up and turned to Elena, his face grim. "Derek's outside the penthouse in the city. He's been there for the past hour, watching the building." Elena's blood ran cold. "Does he know we're not there?" "If he doesn't, he will soon. One of the doormen is going to tell him you left days ago. Then he'll start looking for us." "Let him look. He doesn't know about this place." But Luca was already moving, pulling on his clothes with swift efficiency. "I need to go back to the city. Make sure he doesn't do anything stupid." "I'm coming with you." "No, you're staying here with Jamie. That's not negotiable." Elena's hands clenched into fists. "You don't get to make that decision for me." "Someone has to." Luca turned to face her, his eyes hard. "Derek's unpredictable right now. He's desperate. If he sees you, if he gets anywhere near you, I don't know what he'll do. I'm not taking that risk." "And if something happens to you?" "It won't." "You can't know that." "Elena." Luca crossed back to her, his hands framing her face. "I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Elena wanted to argue, wanted to demand that he take her with him, that he stop treating her like something fragile that needed protecting. But the look in his eyes, determined, unyielding, told her she'd already lost this fight. "Fine," she said, her voice tight. "But you call me every hour, and if I don't hear from you, you will." Luca kissed her, quick and hard. "I'll be back before you know it." He was gone 5 minutes later, leaving Elena alone in the dark with the sound of her own heartbeat hammering in her ears. She didn't go back to sleep. Instead, she sat in the living room, her phone clutched in her hand, watching the minutes tick by. 1 hour became 2, then 3. Luca called twice, each time with the same update. Derek was still at the penthouse, still watching, still waiting. He's going to figure it out, Elena said during the second call. He's going to realize we're not there and start looking elsewhere. Then we'll be ready. Luca's voice was steady, but Elena could hear the tension beneath it. How's Jamie? Still asleep. Good. Keep it that way. Luca, I have to go. I'll call you in an hour. The line went dead before Elena could say anything else. She stared at her phone, her chest tight with fear and frustration. She was so focused on the screen that she almost missed the sound. A soft creak, like a footstep on old wood. Elena's head snapped up. The house was dark, the only light coming from the moon filtering through the windows. She held her breath, listening. There it was again, closer this time. Elena's hand moved to her phone, her thumb hovering over Luca's number. But before she could call, a figure stepped into the living room. Not Derek, a woman. Young, maybe mid-20s, with dark hair and a face Elena had seen before. It took her a moment to place it. One of the photographers who'd been camped outside Luca's building for the past 2 weeks. Who are you? Elena demanded, her voice sharper than she felt. How did you get in here? The woman held up her hands, palms out. Relax. I'm not here to hurt you. That's not an answer. My name's Casey. I'm a journalist. The woman took a step closer, and Elena saw the press badge hanging around her neck. I've been following your story since the gala, and I think you're in danger. Elena's pulse spiked. Get out. Now. Just hear me out, please. Casey's voice was urgent. Derek Voss isn't at the penthouse anymore. He left 20 minutes ago, and I think I know where he's going. Elena's breath stopped. What are you talking about? I've been tracking his phone. I know, it's illegal, but... Casey pulled out her own phone, showing Elena a map with a blinking red dot. He's heading north, same direction you came. Elena's vision blurred. That's impossible. No one knows we're here. Someone does, and they told Derek. Casey's eyes were wide, earnest. Look, I don't care about the story anymore. I care about making sure you and your kid don't end up on the evening news for the wrong reasons. So, you can either listen to me, or you can wait for Derek to show up and prove me right. Elena's hand shook as she grabbed her phone and dialed Luca's number. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again, same result. He's not answering, Casey said quietly. Is he? Elena's chest constricted. She looked toward the hallway where Jamie was sleeping, then back at Casey. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, that trusting a stranger would only end in disaster. But if Casey was telling the truth, if Derek really was on his way here, then Elena had minutes, maybe less, to get Jamie to safety. How do I know you're not working with him? Elena asked, her voice shaking. Casey met her gaze, unflinching. You don't. But ask yourself this. If I wanted to hurt you, why would I warn you first? It was a fair point, a terrifying one. Elena made her decision. Wake Jamie, we're leaving. Elena didn't waste time arguing with herself. She ran down the hallway to Jamie's room, her heart slamming against her ribs so hard it hurt. He was curled up under the blankets, his astronaut clutched to his chest, sleeping the deep sleep of children who still believed the world was safe. Jamie? She shook his shoulder gently. Baby, wake up. We need to go. He stirred, his eyes opening slowly. Mommy, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. We're just going on an adventure. But we have to be very quiet and very fast, okay? Jamie sat up, rubbing his eyes. He was getting too good at this, at waking up in the middle of the night and being told to pack, to move, to run. Elena hated herself for it. Where are we going? I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out together. She grabbed his backpack and started shoving clothes into it. Get your shoes on. Casey appeared in the doorway. We have maybe 10 minutes before he gets here. There's a service road about half a mile through the woods. My car's there. Elena's hands froze on the zipper. You parked half a mile away? I wasn't exactly invited. Casey's expression was sheepish. I've been watching the place for 2 days, waiting for the right moment to approach you. So you're a stalker. I prefer persistent journalist. But yeah, basically, under different circumstances, Elena might have laughed. Right now, she just grabbed Jamie's hand and pulled him to his feet. Can you run? She asked him. Jamie nodded, his face pale but determined. Yeah. They moved through the house quickly, Elena's mind racing. She should call the security team Luca had posted around the property, should alert them that Derek was coming, but her phone was still going straight to Luca's voicemail, and she didn't have numbers for anyone else. Casey led them out the back door, away from the driveway and toward the tree line. The moon was bright enough to see by, casting long shadows across the grass. Elena kept one hand on Jamie's shoulder, the other clutching her phone like a lifeline. They were halfway to the woods when the headlights appeared. A car came up the long driveway, moving fast. Too fast. Elena's blood turned to ice. Run! Casey hissed. They ran. The forest was darker than Elena expected, the moonlight barely penetrating the canopy. Branches caught at her clothes, roots threatened to trip her with every step. Jamie stumbled once, and Elena hauled him back up by his arm, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind them, she heard a car door slam. Then Derek's voice, cutting through the night like a blade. Elena, I know you're here. She didn't stop, didn't look back, just kept running, following Casey's shadowy figure through the trees. There's the road, Casey called back, pointing ahead. Elena saw it, a narrow dirt path barely wide enough for one car, and parked on it, half hidden by brush, was a beat-up Honda Civic that looked like it had seen better decades. That's your car? Elena gasped. Journalism doesn't pay what it used to. Get in. Elena yanked open the back door and shoved Jamie inside, climbing in after him. Casey was already in the driver's seat, key in the ignition. The engine turned over once, twice, then died. No, no, no! Casey tried again. Nothing. Elena's hand shook as she looked back toward the woods. She could hear footsteps now, crashing through the undergrowth, getting closer. Casey? I know. The journalist pumped the gas pedal, turning the key again. This time the engine coughed to life. Casey threw the car into gear and floored it. The Civic lurched forward, tires spinning on loose dirt before catching traction. Elena twisted in her seat, looking out the rear window. Derek stood at the edge of the tree line, illuminated by the taillights. Even from a distance, she could see the rage on his face. Then Casey took a sharp turn, and he disappeared from view. Where are we going? Elena asked, her voice shaking. I don't know. Away. Somewhere public. Casey's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. He won't try anything if there are witnesses. You don't know him. He doesn't care about witnesses. Then we'll figure something else out. Casey glanced at her in the rear view mirror. Do you have anyone you can call? Someone who can help? Elena tried Luca's number again, still voicemail. She wanted to scream. Mommy? Jamie's voice was small, scared. Is he going to find us? Elena pulled him close, her throat tight. No, baby, I won't let him. But even as she said it, she saw headlights appear behind them. A black SUV, closing the distance fast. He's following us, Casey said, her voice tight. Elena's mind raced. They couldn't outrun Derek in this car, couldn't fight him if he caught up. Their only option was to get somewhere safe, somewhere with people, before he forced them off the road. There's a town about 15 miles from here, Casey said. If we can make it there. The SUV slammed into their rear bumper. The impact sent them lurching forward. Jamie screamed. Elena wrapped her arms around him, trying to shield him as Casey fought to keep the car on the road. He's insane, Casey shouted. I told you. Derek hit them again, harder this time. The Civic fishtailed, tires screeching. Casey jerked the wheel, narrowly avoiding a tree. Elena's phone buzzed. She grabbed it, hope surging. But it wasn't Luca. It was a text from an unknown number. The message was short. Stop the car. Get out. Or I force you off the road and take what's mine. Elena's hands trembled. She looked at Jamie, at his tear-streaked face and wide, terrified eyes, and something inside her cracked. She'd spent 3 years running from Derek. 3 years looking over her shoulder, changing names, rebuilding her life only to have it shattered again and again. And for what? So her son could grow up terrified? So she could spend the rest of her life waiting for Derek to find her? No, not anymore. Pull over, Elena said. Casey's eyes went wide in the mirror. What? Pull over. Let me out. Are you crazy? He wants me, not you, not Jamie. Elena's voice was steady now, cold with purpose. Pull over and take Jamie somewhere safe. Call the police. Call Luca. But get my son out of here. Elena, no. Jamie grabbed her arm, his fingers digging in. Don't leave me. Elena's heart shattered. She cupped his face, memorizing every detail. I love you so much, baby. More than anything. But I need you to be brave for me one more time. Can you do that? I don't want to be brave. I want you to stay. I know. Elena kissed his forehead, breathing him in, but sometimes being brave means letting go. Before Jamie could protest, before she could second-guess herself, Elena opened the car door. Drive, she told Casey. Now. Casey hesitated for only a second. Then she hit the gas and the Civic shot forward, leaving Elena standing alone on the dark road. The SUV screeched to a stop 10 feet away. Derek climbed out, his face twisted with something between rage and triumph. Elena, he said, his voice soft, almost gentle. You finally came to your senses. Elena's hands clenched into fists. Let them go. This is between us. Damn right it is. Derek moved toward her slowly, like he was approaching a skittish animal. You've caused me so much trouble, baby. Do you have any idea what you've put me through? What I've put you through? Elena's laugh was sharp, bitter. You kidnapped our son. You terrorized me for years. I loved you. Derek's voice cracked. Everything I did was because I loved you, and you threw it back in my face. You humiliated me, made me look weak. You made yourself look weak by thinking you owned me. Derek's expression darkened. I did own you. I still do. And it's time you remembered that. He lunged. Elena was ready. She'd spent the last 3 years preparing for this moment, even if she hadn't known it. She dodged his grab, driving her elbow into his ribs the way the self-defense instructor had taught her. Derek grunted, stumbling back. You little... Elena didn't wait for him to finish. She ran. Not toward the road where Casey had disappeared with Jamie. Toward the woods, where the darkness could swallow her, where Derek would have to work to catch her. Every second she bought was another second for Casey to get Jamie to safety. She heard Derek behind her, cursing, crashing through the undergrowth. He was bigger, stronger, but Elena was faster. Desperation gave her wings, until her foot caught on a root and she went down hard. Derek was on her in seconds, his weight pinning her to the ground. His hand closed around her throat, cutting off her air. You really thought you could run from me? Derek's face was inches from hers, his breath hot and sour. You really thought some rich asshole with a gun could save you? Elena clawed at his hand, her vision starting to blur. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the pressure building in her skull, the burning in her lungs. Then a gunshot split the night. Derek jerked, his grip loosening. Elena sucked in air, coughing, as Derek collapsed beside her. She scrambled away, her hands shaking, and looked up. Luca stood 10 feet away, his gun still raised. Blood covered his shirt, his own, from the reopened wound in his side. His face was pale, drawn, but his eyes were clear and cold. Get away from her, he said quietly. Derek groaned, clutching his shoulder where the bullet had hit. You shot me. And I'll do it again if you move. Luca crossed to Elena, pulling her to her feet. His hands ran over her quickly, checking for injuries. Are you okay? Where's Jamie? Safe with the journalist. I sent them away. Elena's voice was hoarse, raw from Derek's grip. How did you find me? Security cameras caught Derek leaving the city. I tried to call you. My phone was going to voicemail. I know, so I drove like hell to get here. Luca's jaw tightened. When I saw the house empty and your phone's GPS moving, He stopped, his hand cupping her face. Don't ever do that to me again. Do what? Make me think I lost you. Elena's throat tightened. She wanted to say something, wanted to tell him she was sorry, that she'd been trying to protect Jamie, that she hadn't meant to scare him. But before she could find the words, Derek moved. It happened fast. Derek lunged for the gun he'd dropped when Luca shot him, his blood-slicked hand closing around the grip. He raised it, pointing directly at Elena. If I can't have you, Derek said, his voice steady despite the pain, no one can. Luca didn't hesitate. He fired. The shot hit Derek's center mass, and he went down without a sound. For a moment, the forest was silent, except for Elena's ragged breathing. Then Luca lowered his gun, his hand shaking slightly. Is he... Elena couldn't finish the question. Luca crossed to Derek, checking for a pulse. His face was grim when he looked back at her. He's alive. Barely. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Someone had called the police. Probably Casey, or maybe one of Luca's security team had finally figured out what was happening. Luca returned to Elena, pulling her into his arms. She collapsed against him, her legs finally giving out. He held her up, one hand in her hair, the other pressed to her back. It's over, he murmured. It's really over. Elena wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that Derek bleeding out on the forest floor meant the end of the nightmare. But she'd learned the hard way that endings were never as clean as people wanted them to be. The police arrived in a flood of lights and noise. Paramedics loaded Derek onto a stretcher, working frantically to stabilize him. Detectives separated Elena and Luca, taking statements, asking questions that blurred together in Elena's exhausted mind. She told them everything. About the kidnapping, the abuse, the years of running, about Derek showing up at the estate, about the chase, about Luca saving her life. Again. One of the detectives, a woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, sat across from Elena in the back of an ambulance while a paramedic checked her throat. You're going to have some bruising, the detective said, but you're lucky. Another few seconds and... She didn't finish. Elena knew. She'd felt how close she'd come to not walking away. Where's my son? Elena asked, her voice barely a whisper. Safe. The journalist, Casey Martinez, drove him to the police station in town. He's with a social worker right now, but you'll be able to see him soon. Elena's eyes burned. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We still need to sort through what happened here tonight. The detective's gaze was steady. Derek Voss is claiming self-defense. Says you lured him here, that Luca Moretti attacked him without provocation. Elena's stomach dropped. That's insane. Probably. But his lawyer's good, and juries can be unpredictable. The detective leaned forward. I need you to be honest with me. Did Mr. Moretti shoot Derek Voss in self-defense, or was it something else? Elena met her gaze without flinching. Derek tried to kill me. Luca stopped him. That's all you need to know. The detective studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, we'll need you to come to the station tomorrow for a full statement, but for now, you're free to go. Luca was waiting outside the ambulance, his own injuries bandaged, his shirt changed into something one of the officers had loaned him. He looked exhausted, drained in a way Elena had never seen. They cleared you? He asked. For now. You? Same. Luca's hand found hers, his grip tight. Let's get you to Jamie. The drive to the police station felt surreal. Elena sat in the passenger seat of a squad car, watching the dark trees blur past, trying to process everything that had happened in the last few hours. Derek was alive. In critical condition, but alive, which meant lawyers, trials, more media scrutiny, more questions, which meant this wasn't over. Not really. But when they pulled into the station parking lot and Elena saw Casey waiting outside with Jamie, none of that mattered. Jamie broke away from Casey and ran to her, and Elena caught him, lifting him even though he was getting too big for it. He wrapped his arms around her neck, sobbing into her shoulder. I thought he hurt you, Jamie gasped. I thought, I'm okay, baby. I'm okay. Elena pressed her face into his hair, breathing him in. You were so brave. So brave. Casey stood a few feet away, hands in her pockets, looking uncomfortable. I called the police as soon as we got here, and I called Mr. Moretti's number, got one of his people who redirected me to him. Thank you, Elena said, the words inadequate. You saved us. Casey shrugged. I was just doing my job. Well, not my job exactly. My editor's going to kill me for getting involved instead of just reporting. She paused. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're okay. Luca appeared beside Elena, his hand resting on her back. Miss Martinez, I owe you a debt. Casey's eyes widened slightly. You're Luca Moretti. I am. The same Luca Moretti who just shot a man twice in the middle of the woods. In defense of someone I care about, Yes. Casey studied him for a moment, then nodded. Okay. Just wanted to make sure we were on the same page. She pulled out a business card and handed it to Elena. If you ever want to tell your story, the real story, not the tabloid version, call me. Elena took the card, tucking it into her pocket. I'll think about it. Casey left, and Elena finally allowed herself to breathe. Jamie was still clinging to her, his face buried in her neck. Luca stood close, his presence solid and grounding. What happens now? Elena asked quietly. Now we go home, Luca said. Get some sleep. Deal with everything else tomorrow. Home, Elena repeated. The word felt foreign. She hadn't had a home in 3 years, just places she stayed until Derek found her. Yeah, Luca's hand squeezed hers. Home. The penthouse felt different when they returned. Safer, maybe. Or maybe Elena was just too exhausted to feel anything but relief at being back. Sophia was waiting when they arrived, her expression carefully neutral. Mr. Moretti, I heard what happened. Is there anything you need? Just privacy, Luca said, and maybe some food. We haven't eaten since... He paused, as if he couldn't remember the last time. I'll have something sent up. Sophia's gaze flicked to Elena, then Jamie. It's good to see you both safe. After Sophia left, Elena carried Jamie to the guest room and helped him change into pajamas. He was quiet, his earlier energy drained. When she tucked him into bed, he grabbed her hand. Are you leaving? He asked. Elena's chest tightened. Just to the living room. I'll be right here if you need me. Promise? Promise. She sat with him until he fell asleep, stroking his hair, humming the lullaby her own mother used to sing. When his breathing finally evened out, she slipped from the room and found Luca in the kitchen. He was leaning against the counter, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring at nothing. You should be in bed, Elena said softly. So should you. Can't sleep. Me neither. Luca took a sip of his drink. I keep seeing him pointing that gun at you. Keep thinking about what would have happened if I'd been 5 seconds slower. Elena crossed to him, taking the glass from his hand and setting it aside. But you weren't. You got there in time. This time. Yes, this time. Elena's hands framed his face, forcing him to look at her. You saved my life, Luca. Again. I don't know how to repay that. You don't owe me anything. I owe you everything. Luca's hands covered hers. I told you before. I didn't do this because I expected something in return. I did it because I couldn't stand the thought of Derek hurting you, because when I look at you, I see... What? Elena whispered. What do you see? Someone worth saving. Someone worth fighting for. His voice was rough. Someone I don't want to lose. Elena's breath caught. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. I don't know how to be with someone without waiting for it to go wrong. Then we'll figure it out together, one day at a time. What if I can't? What if I'm too damaged? Then you're damaged. Luca's thumb brushed her cheek. I don't care. I'm not looking for perfect, Elena. I'm just looking for you. Elena didn't trust herself to speak, so she kissed him instead, pouring everything she couldn't say into the contact. Luca responded immediately, his arms wrapping around her, holding her like she was something precious. When they finally broke apart, Elena rested her forehead against his. He's not dead. I know. He's going to try to twist this, make himself the victim. Let him try. We have evidence, witnesses, your testimony. He's not walking away from this. You can't promise that. No, Luca agreed. But I can promise that I'll be there every step of the way. For the trial, the media circus, all of it. You're not doing this alone. Elena closed her eyes, letting herself lean into him. For the first time in as long as she could remember, she wasn't carrying the weight by herself. The next morning brought chaos. Vanessa called before Elena was even fully awake, her voice tight with controlled urgency. Derek's awake. He's already given a statement to the police claiming you and Luca orchestrated an attack on him. Elena's stomach twisted. What? His lawyer is spinning a narrative that you manipulated Luca into hunting Derek down, that the shooting was premeditated. Vanessa paused. It's bullshit, obviously, but it's going to make things complicated. How complicated? The DA is reviewing the case to determine if charges should be filed against Luca for attempted murder. Elena's blood ran cold. No, he was protecting me. I know, and we'll prove it. But Elena, this is going to get ugly. Derek's painting himself as a concerned father who was ambushed. The media is going to eat it up. So what do? We fight back. I'm scheduling a press conference for tomorrow. You're going to tell your story, all of it. The abuse, the kidnapping, everything Derek did to you. We're going to make sure the world knows exactly who Derek Voss is. Elena's hands trembled. The thought of standing in front of cameras, exposing the worst parts of her life for public consumption, made her want to throw up. But the alternative was letting Derek control the narrative. And she was done letting Derek control anything. Okay, she said quietly. I'll do it. The press conference was held in a hotel ballroom that smelled like carpet cleaner and expensive perfume. Elena stood backstage, her hands shaking so badly she had to clasp them together to keep anyone from noticing. Through a gap in the curtain, she could see the sea of reporters, cameras, microphones. Waiting. Vanessa appeared beside her, immaculate in a charcoal suit. You don't have to do this if you're not ready. I'm never going to be ready. Elena's voice was steadier than she felt. But I'm doing it anyway. Good. Because they're going to ask you everything. About Derek, about the abuse, about Luca. Don't let them rattle you. Just tell the truth. The truth? Elena almost laughed. Which version? The one where you're a survivor, not a victim. The one where Derek Voss is a monster who belongs in prison. Vanessa's expression softened slightly. You've got this. And I'll be right there if you need me. Luca stood a few feet away, his arms crossed, his face unreadable. He'd argued against the press conference, said it would only feed the media circus. But Elena had overruled him. This was her story to tell, and she was done letting other people control it. Their eyes met across the space. Luca gave a small nod, and Elena felt something settle in her chest. Whatever happened out there, she wasn't alone. The moderator called her name. Elena walked onto the stage, the lights blinding, the cameras clicking like a swarm of insects. She sat down at the table, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at the crowd of strangers waiting to dissect her life. My name is Elena Hayes, she began, her voice amplified through the speakers. And 3 years ago, I ran away from a man who almost killed me. The room went silent. Elena told them everything. About Derek's charm in the beginning, the way he'd made her feel special, seen. About the first time he hit her, how he'd apologized, promised it would never happen again. About the escalation, the bruises she learned to cover with makeup, the excuses she made to friends who stopped asking. About the night she'd packed a bag while Derek was passed out drunk and disappeared with Jamie, terrified he'd find them. She told them about the restraining order that expired because she couldn't afford to keep renewing it. About changing her name, moving cities, living in constant fear that Derek would track them down. About seeing him at the gala and making a split-second decision that changed everything. I didn't plan to kiss Luca Moretti, Elena said, her hand steady now on the table. I didn't know who he was. I just knew I needed Derek to think I wasn't alone, that I wasn't the same scared woman he used to control. A reporter in the front row raised her hand. But you are with Mr. Moretti now, aren't you? Some people are saying you used him. Some people, Elena cut in, her voice sharp, don't know what it's like to spend years looking over their shoulder, to sleep with a knife under their pillow, to teach their 6-year-old son what to do if a bad man comes to the door. She leaned forward, her gaze locking on the reporter. Luca Moretti saved my life, twice. I didn't use him. He chose to help me, and I'll be grateful for that every day for the rest of my life. The questions came rapid fire after that. Why hadn't she gone to the police when Derek kidnapped Jamie? Why had she run into the woods instead of waiting for help? Why had Luca shot Derek twice instead of calling the authorities? Elena answered each one, her voice never wavering. She didn't apologize, didn't make excuses. She just told the truth, raw and unpolished, and let them make of it what they would. By the time Vanessa called an end to the conference, Elena was exhausted. But when she stood up and saw the reporters, some of them nodding, some of them wiping their eyes, she knew she'd done what she'd come to do. She'd taken her story back. Backstage, Luca was waiting. He pulled her into his arms without a word, and Elena let herself collapse against him, the adrenaline finally draining away. You were incredible, he murmured against her hair. I felt like I was going to throw up the entire time. You didn't show it. Elena pulled back, looking up at him. Do you think it'll be enough to stop Derek's lawyer from spinning this? I think you just made it a hell of a lot harder for them to paint you as the villain. Luca's hand cupped her face. The rest we'll deal with as it comes. The trial was set for 3 months later. In the meantime, Derek remained in custody, his bail revoked after the shooting. His lawyer filed motion after motion, trying to get the charges reduced, trying to suppress evidence, trying anything to keep Derek from spending the rest of his life in prison. But the evidence was overwhelming. The hospital records from Elena's time with Derek, the text messages threatening her, the testimony from the warehouse, from the estate, from Casey Martinez, who'd witnessed Derek's pursuit firsthand. And then there were the financial crimes Luca had uncovered, the offshore accounts, the embezzlement, the fraud that had funded Derek's lifestyle for years. Vanessa was ruthless. She built a case so airtight that even Derek's high-priced legal team couldn't find a crack. Elena spent those 3 months trying to build something resembling a normal life. She enrolled Jamie in a new school, a private one with security that made Fort Knox look casual. She started seeing a therapist, working through the trauma she'd buried for years. She even began volunteering at a women's shelter, helping other survivors navigate the legal system. And she stayed with Luca. It wasn't smooth. There were nights when Elena woke up screaming, convinced Derek had found them. Mornings when she couldn't get out of bed because the weight of everything was too much. Days when she snapped at Luca for trying to help, for hovering, for treating her like something fragile. But Luca didn't leave. Didn't get frustrated or impatient. He just stayed steady and solid until Elena could find her footing again. I'm not easy to be with, she told him one night, lying in bed, her head on his chest. I noticed. I'm serious. I have nightmares. I have panic attacks. I don't trust easily, and when I do, I second-guess everything. Okay. Elena lifted her head, looking at him. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say? That you're too damaged for me? Luca's hand traced patterns on her back. I've killed people, Elena. I've done things that would keep you up at night if you knew the details. You think your baggage scares me? Maybe it should. Maybe, but it doesn't. His eyes met hers. I'm not here because you're easy. I'm here because you're worth it. Elena's throat tightened. I don't know what I did to deserve you. You survived. That's enough. The trial began on a cold Monday in November. Elena sat in the gallery, Luca beside her, as Derek was led into the courtroom in handcuffs. He'd lost weight during his incarceration, his face gaunt, his suit hanging loose. But his eyes, when they found Elena's, were still full of that same entitled rage. The prosecution laid out their case methodically. They called Elena to the stand first, and she recounted everything: the abuse, the control, the fear. Derek's lawyer tried to rattle her, insinuating that she'd exaggerated the abuse, that she'd alienated Derek from his son out of spite. Isn't it true, Ms. Hayes, the lawyer said, his tone oily, that you left Mr. Voss without giving him any opportunity to change? That you took his son and disappeared, denying him his parental rights? Elena's hands clenched in her lap. I left because staying would have killed me. And I took my son because I wasn't going to let Derek turn him into the kind of man who thinks hitting women is acceptable. But you have no proof that Mr. Voss ever posed a danger to your son. He kidnapped him. Elena's voice was ice. He terrified a 6-year-old boy to get back at me. That's all the proof anyone needs. The lawyer tried to continue, but the judge cut him off. Move on, counselor. Next came the warehouse incident. The prosecutor played the 911 call from one of Luca's security team, the one who'd found Jamie tied up and called for backup. They presented photos of the scene, of the ropes that had bound Jamie's wrists, of the blood on the floor from Luca's gunshot wound. Derek's lawyer argued it was self-defense, that Derek had been trying to protect his son from a dangerous situation. But when the prosecutor called Luca to the stand, that argument fell apart. Luca was calm, controlled, his testimony precise. He explained how he'd tracked Derek to the warehouse, how he'd seen Derek holding Elena at gunpoint through thermal imaging, how he'd made the decision to engage to save her life. And when you shot Mr. Voss the first time, the prosecutor asked, what was your intent? To stop him from killing Elena Hayes. Not to kill him yourself? No. If I'd wanted to kill him, he'd be dead. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Derek's lawyer objected, but the judge overruled it. The most damning testimony came from Derek's former accountant, who detailed years of financial fraud. The man painted a picture of Derek as someone who'd built his entire life on lies and manipulation, who'd thought his money made him untouchable. By the time the prosecution rested, Derek looked smaller, defeated. But Elena knew better than to assume it was over. The defense put Derek on the stand. He was good. Elena had to give him that. Calm, articulate, painting himself as a father who'd made mistakes but was trying to make amends. He admitted to taking Jamie, but claimed he'd only done it to protect his son from Luca, whom he characterized as a violent criminal. "I was afraid for Jamie's safety," Derek said, his voice breaking slightly. Elena was involved with a man known for his connections to organized crime. I couldn't stand by and do nothing. Elena's nails dug into her palms. Luca's hand covered hers, steadying her. "And the night at the estate?" the defense lawyer prompted. "What happened there?" "I went to talk to Elena, to try to reason with her. But Moretti ambushed me, shot me without warning." Derek's gaze found Elena's across the courtroom. "I thought I was going to die, all because I loved the wrong woman." The prosecutor tore him apart on cross-examination, produced the threatening text Derek had sent Elena, highlighted the inconsistencies in his story, how he claimed to fear for Jamie's safety but had tied him up and left him in a warehouse, how he claimed Luca had ambushed him but had been the one to pursue Elena through the woods. By the time the prosecutor finished, Derek's facade had cracked. He was sweating, his answers clipped and defensive. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Elena spent that time in a fog, unable to eat, unable to sleep. Luca stayed close, a constant presence, but even he couldn't chase away the fear that Derek would somehow slip through the cracks. On the 3rd day, the jury returned. Elena sat in the gallery, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white, as the foreperson stood. "On the charge of kidnapping in the 1st degree, how do you find?" "Guilty." "On the charge of assault with a deadly weapon?" "Guilty." "On the charge of attempted murder?" Elena's breath stopped. "Guilty." The word echoed through the courtroom. Derek's face went white. His lawyer immediately began protesting, demanding a mistrial, but the judge silenced him with a look. Elena couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It was over. Really, truly over. Luca's arm wrapped around her shoulders, and she turned into him, pressing her face against his chest as relief crashed over her in waves. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge gave Derek 25 years to life, with no possibility of parole for at least 15. The financial crimes added another decade on top of that. Elena stood outside the courthouse afterward, the cold November wind biting at her face, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Free. 6 months later, Elena stood in front of a brick building in Brooklyn, a set of keys in her hand. The sign above the door read New Beginnings Foundation in clean, simple letters. Luca stood beside her, his hands in his pockets. "You ready?" Elena looked at the building, her building, funded by Luca, but run by her. A place where women fleeing abuse could find shelter, legal help, therapy, job training. Everything Elena had needed 3 years ago and hadn't been able to find. "Yeah," she said. "I'm ready." Inside, the space was bright and welcoming. Comfortable furniture, a play area for kids, offices where lawyers and counselors could meet with clients. It had taken months to put together, but it was finally real. Jamie ran past, chasing another kid through the common room. He'd adjusted better than Elena had expected, still had nightmares sometimes, still asked questions about Derek that Elena didn't always know how to answer. But he was laughing again, playing, being a kid. That was enough. Catherine appeared from one of the offices, a clipboard in her hand. She'd quit her job at the marketing firm to become the foundation's director of operations, claiming she was tired of selling things people didn't need. "We have 3 intakes scheduled for this week," Catherine said, "and the city council approved our grant application. We're officially funded for the next 2 years. Elena's chest swelled. "That's incredible." "You're incredible," Catherine squeezed her shoulder. "You turned your trauma into something that's going to save lives. That's not nothing." After Catherine left, Elena found Luca in her office, A small room with a desk, a bookshelf, and a window overlooking the street. "What do you think?" she asked. "I think you're going to change the world." Luca pulled her into his arms, one person at a time. Elena leaned into him, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne. "I couldn't have done this without you." "Sure you could have. You just wouldn't have had as much funding." His tone was light, teasing, but his arms tightened around her. "I'm proud of you." "For what?" "For not letting Derek win. For turning your pain into something beautiful. For being stubborn enough to keep fighting even when it would have been easier to give up." Elena pulled back, looking up at him. "I love you. You know that, right?" It was the first time she'd said it out loud. Luca's expression shifted, something warm and fierce replacing his usual control. "I know," he said. "I love you too." They stood like that for a long moment, the noise of the foundation fading into the background. Then Jamie's voice rang out from the hallway. "Mom! Luca! Come see what we built!" Elena laughed, pulling away. "Duty calls." "Yeah." Luca caught her hand, lacing their fingers together. "It does." That night, after Jamie was asleep and the foundation was locked up, Elena and Luca walked through the city. No destination, just moving, breathing in the cold air and the sounds of traffic and voices. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't been at that gala?" Elena asked. "Sometimes." Luca's thumb traced circles on her palm. "But then I remember that you would have figured it out anyway. You didn't need me to save you. You just needed someone to stand beside you while you saved yourself." Elena stopped walking, turning to face him. "That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me." "It's the truth." Still, she rose on her toes, kissing him softly. "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me. The real me, not the broken version Derek tried to create. For believing I was worth fighting for when I didn't believe it myself." Luca's hands framed her face. "You were always worth fighting for. You just needed to realize it." They continued walking hand in hand as the city lights flickered on around them. Elena thought about Derek rotting in a cell upstate. Thought about Jamie, safe and happy. Thought about the women who would walk through the foundation's doors in the coming months, looking for the same thing she'd once needed, hope. She'd spent 3 years running from her past, another 6 months fighting to reclaim her future. And now, finally, she was ready to live. Not as a victim, not as someone defined by what had been done to her, just as Elena, flawed, scarred, but whole. A year later, Elena stood on a stage in front of 200 people, her hands steady on the podium. The Foundation's first annual gala was in full swing, donors and supporters filling the ballroom. Jamie sat in the front row next to Luca, both of them dressed in suits, both of them grinning at her. "When I started this foundation," Elena said, her voice carrying through the speakers, "I thought I was doing it to help other people, to give them what I wished I'd had when I was running. But I've learned something over the past year. Helping others heal is how we heal ourselves." She looked out at the crowd, at the faces of women she'd worked with, women who'd walked through the foundation's doors broken and were now rebuilding. Women who'd found jobs, found housing, found their voices again. Every person who walks through our doors is a survivor, not a victim, not broken, just someone who's been through hell and came out the other side. Elena's gaze found Luca's, and every single one of them deserves to know they're not alone, that there are people who will stand beside them, believe them, fight for them. The room erupted in applause. Elena stepped down from the podium, and Luca met her at the bottom of the stairs, pulling her into his arms. "You're amazing," he murmured against her ear. "We're amazing," Elena corrected. I couldn't do this without you." "Yeah, you could, but I'm glad you don't have to." Later, when the gala was winding down and Jamie was asleep in a chair in the corner, Elena and Luca slipped out onto the balcony. The city stretched out below them, a sea of lights and possibilities. "Do you ever regret it?" Luca asked. "Getting involved with me? Everything that came after?" Elena thought about it. About the media circus, the trial, the night she'd woken up screaming, about the hard work of rebuilding herself, of learning to trust again. "No," she said finally, "not for a second. Even though it was messy? Especially because it was messy. Perfect doesn't exist, but this," she gestured between them. "This is real. And that's worth more than perfect ever could be. Luca's arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. They stood like that, watching the city breathe, until Jamie stirred inside and called for them. Elena turned to go, but Luca caught her hand. "Hey," he said softly. "I'm glad you kissed me at that gala." Elena smiled, the expression coming easier now than it had in years. "So am I." They walked back inside together, back to Jamie, back to the life they'd built from the ashes of Elena's past. It wasn't perfect. It was hard sometimes, messy and complicated and full of moments when the trauma threatened to pull her under. But it was hers, and she'd fought too hard for it to ever let it go. 3 years after that night at the gala, Elena sat in her office at the foundation, reviewing applications for their new scholarship program. The foundation had grown beyond what she'd imagined. 3 locations now, partnerships with legal firms and therapy practices, a track record of helping hundreds of women escape abuse and rebuild their lives. Jamie was 9 now, thriving in school, playing soccer, making friends. He still had nightmares occasionally, still asked about Derek sometimes, but mostly he was just a kid. Happy, normal, safe. And Elena. Elena had stopped looking over her shoulder, stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. She'd learned to trust again, to love again, to believe that good things could last. The door to her office opened, and Luca walked in, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. "Thought you could use this," he said, setting one on her desk. Elena smiled up at him. "You're the best." "I know." He leaned down, kissing her softly. "How's the application review going?" "Slow, but good. We have 50 applicants for 10 slots. Every single one of them deserves it." "So fund all 50? Elena laughed. "With what money?" "I'll cover it." "Luca, I'm serious. This foundation is changing lives. If we can help more people, we should." He sat on the edge of her desk, his hand finding hers. "Besides, I have more money than I know what to do with. Might as well use it for something meaningful." Elena's throat tightened. "You really mean that?" "I really do." She stood, moving into his arms, and let herself just be held. Grateful, content, free. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too." Luca's hand stroked her back. "Always." Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, Elena Hayes, survivor, fighter, founder, finally allowed herself to believe that the nightmare was over, and that the life she'd fought so hard for was just beginning.